Well, if we're ready, then let's begin. Is the sound okay? Let's just make sure we're good. Okay. And thank you, Frank, for hosting, for setting everything up. And of course, want to thank everybody translating. Um, you know the routine. Please give me the universal slow down sign if I'm going too fast. And I wanted to thank all the distributors that we work with that are bringing people to the teachings, of course. And let's begin. It's what is it, the beginning of winter? Yeah, it's the solstice, winter solstice today. So it feels like it's the beginning of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika season. We're starting the Pradipika season with this first webinar and kind of getting ready for Geshe Michael's teachings in January 18 to 29. So it's kind of like I feel excited. I feel like, oh, I get to start reviewing the courses from the previous classes he's taught. Looking forward to the next chapter, and that's the goal today. Let's try to refresh our mind. What is this text? Why is it important? What have we studied so far? And then at the at the end of the class, we'll take a little bit of time and we'll look forward. What's in the third chapter. So it'll be a review and it'll be a preview and time to ask, at any time you can chat in a question. You can, we'll do a little bit of Q&A. It can be spontaneous. You can interrupt the flow. That's fine. We can be casual. Um, if you have a question, chat it in. That's great. And I'll do my best to answer. Cool. We have an hour. Let's use it. Um, what's the story of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika? Like, why do I get this question a lot. I had someone ask this morning, why do we need to study this text? And I think to answer that question, it's easiest to step back and say, well, why do we need to study yoga? What is yoga? And, the standard definition of yoga is stopping how the mind is crazy, right? It's stopping the mind that tries to get rid of problems. And as we get rid of those problems, we're just perpetuating them. So I often talk about the time when I would take my dog to the park every morning to take the dog to the park for a walk. And, as we were driving to the park, this other dog would hit this corner, would hit a stop sign, and I'd have to wait for the traffic. And this dog would always come running out by this other house. He'd come running out, rah, 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 rah. And it was this big, aggressive dog. And my dog in the car was, he was young, he was energetic, and he would start like just going crazy. And I'd have to like grab the dog in the car, rah, 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 rah. The dog outside's yelling, the dog inside the car is yelling. And so what do? I'm yelling, shut up, shut up. The dog's name was Radna. Radna, shut up. And that went on for months, every day. It was the only way to go. I couldn't drive a different way. And At one point, I remember in the middle of yelling, "Shut up," just being like, "Oh my God, this is insane." My ears are hearing loud, annoying noise, but they're just hearing tones, decibels. And my mind is taking that situation, seed ripening, saying annoying. And, uh, and so what do? I create loud, annoying noise. And I'm just planting a seed to guarantee that tomorrow I'll have the same experience. And then I plant another seed that is I do the only thing that I could possibly do that guarantees I'll continue to experience the thing I'm trying to avoid, right? I'm doing the only thing that I could possibly do to guarantee I will continue to experience the thing that I'm trying to avoid. And yoga is stopping that. Yoga is stopping that misperception, that way that instinct of when someone criticizes me, I immediately think that, well, obviously they're wrong. That immediately thinks my reality is right. And then at best, I argue with them in my head. At worst, I argue with them out loud. And yoga is stopping that. Yoga is finding ways to stop that misperception of the mind. Yoga is training our mind to respond virtuously instead of non-virtuously. Yoga is yoga is understanding that process so that we can create paradise. And the goal of yoga is that radical, right? It's so radical that it's almost hard to believe. But it's certainly, if you look at yoga and the history of yoga and the text on yoga, it's very little to do with the yoga mat. I mean, there certainly yoga mats. There were no yoga mats until 30 years ago. But the physical part of yoga is a important part, but it's a small part. Yoga really concerns the nature of reality, our misperception of it, the suffering that results from that misperception, and then removing suffering by removing that misperception. So there's a word for philosophy. It's called soteriological. That'll be hard to translate. There's a word in philosophy that talks about systems that the goal is to remove suffering, permanent, all suffering. And that's yoga. And so, whether we accept that or not, whether we believe that or not, it should be like when I first heard that idea of the idea that our life is pervaded by suffering, even the good things are tainted with disappointment or anxiety or they end. I didn't necessarily believe that there is a state that could be totally free of that. But I was certainly interested enough, like, okay, you got my attention. I'm at least going to turn the page, right? I'm at least going to be open minded enough to investigate, is such a state true? Is such a state real? And for 5,000 years, there's a written tradition in yoga of how to remove that suffering. And Geshe-la, I remember him saying, would something last 5,000 years if it didn't work? Like if this idea of yoga is to remove suffering and it just flat out didn't work, would it last 5,000 years? I don't know. It seems unlikely. It seems unlikely something would get handed down generation to generation to generation to generation and not work. Seems unlikely. And so how does yoga relate to the removal of this suffering? We can think of yoga in two broad categories. One is called Raja Yoga. So for those out there, you can say Raja Yoga, Raja Yoga, and the other is Hatha Yoga. So let's talk about those two kinds of yoga. Raja Yoga is the yoga of Patanjali and the Yoga Sutras, basically. Um, we could say Raja Yoga is the yoga of Patanjali, and that's a 2,000-year-old text, which essentially equates yoga with the path of meditation. It's mainly a meditation text that describes how we use the mind, fix the mind. So we can talk about half of yoga as Raja Yoga. We can stereotype that or characterize that, symbolize that with Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And it's essentially a meditation text, using the mind to fix the mind. Then we can talk about Hatha Yoga, Hatha Yoga being the other half. So, what's Hatha Yoga? In general, it's the physical practices of yoga. It's the practices that purify the body, calm the nervous system, and allow for deep states of meditation. And that lead us to the direct perception of emptiness and the removal of suffering. Okay? Again, it's a very lofty goal. And in this text, it says that. It's like the lofty goal of yoga. And so we can see that, there's a saying, Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga, they're the same because they have the same goal. And I think if we look at the PPT, that's what the first slide says. Sorry, Frank, I didn't give you any warning. Mhm. Um, Frank, do we have the capacity for someone to unmute and read the Sanskrit? Yeah, good. I'll pick on Erna. Erna, because I can see you. Can you read? Erna Kovic, looking at you. Oh, maybe she. Erna, can you read the Sanskrit? Going once, going twice. I'm going to pick on somebody else. We'll come back to you. Are you there? No. Who else? I can only see translators. Lisa Lee, can you read the Sanskrit? Can you unmute? Can anyone unmute? All right, we'll work on that. I'll read it. Please say Pranamya Triguram Natam Swatmaramena Yogina Kevalam Raja Yogaya Hatha Vidyo Padishyate. This is from the first chapter. It's the beginning of the text. And Swatmarama he's bowing to his teacher. And he's saying, I'm going to teach this Hatha Yoga, the yoga of the sun and moon, but only as a means to reach Raja Yoga. So he's showing that Hatha Yoga and Raja Yoga, we can differentiate them, but it just led to a bunch of arguments. You can read it in the scriptures, like which one's better, Raja Yoga or Hatha Yoga? Should I meditate or should I do yoga? You don't need to meditate, just do yoga. You don't need to do yoga, just meditate. And Swamaram is like, don't feed into those two bad choices. They're one and the same in that they have the same goal. Let's look at the next slide. I'm afraid to ask, does anyone have the power to read Sanskrit now? Oh, yay, Erna. Cool. Let's see if it works.
Adhasana, Jirthe, Yogi, Vashi, Vitamitasana, Guru Padishtamagrena, Pranayaman Samadhaset.
Amazing. Thank you. It's so nice to see you. There's some big words. Let's try them. Atasane, Drde, Yogi, Vashi, Hitamitasana, Guru Padishta, Margena, Pranayama, Samabaset. Right. Doing our best here. My Sanskrit is very medium, as you just noticed. It's not great. But I really enjoy trying. And wherever we're at in our Sanskrit, we won't progress if we don't try. So just feel good about, and it's beautiful to learn the Sanskrit. It's beautiful to start to learn some of the words and Guru Padishta, Margena, the path that the Guru shows us. And it just, I don't know, there's Sanskrit words just open up our heart in a very special way. And then we can get deeper into the meaning of the text, of the teachings. It's really, Sanskrit is the entryway into the deeper meaning of these ideas. And during the course when Geshe Michael will teach, Michael Johnson will be there again this time, and he'll teach us how to read properly. And it's a very beautiful part of the course. It's very fun. He teaches the alphabet in a way that's very accessible, chanting some of the verses in a way that's very beautiful. And it's a great, if you can come to the course, don't miss his class. It's such a great way to deepen our knowledge of Sanskrit and then deepen our knowledge of the meaning. Okay, what's it mean? This verse is a review of what happened in chapter 1. So what's in chapter 1? Swamirama talks about the poses. He talks about morality. He talks about diet, and those are really important aspects. That's a foundation for the more subtle practices that come in chapters 2, 3, and 4. So he says, he teaches the practices in chapter 1, those as a foundation, and then he teaches the more subtle practices in chapter 2. What's in chapter 2? Chapter 2 is perhaps the most famous source for some of the main Hatha yoga practices, like the pranayama practices, how to control the breath and the prana, something called the 6 cleansing practices, Satkarma. And these are internal cleansing. We'll see a verse on that today. And a practice called kumbhaka, which is these inner retentions that channel and lock the prana into the center channel. Okay, so that was a very quick review of chapter 1 and led us into chapter 2. Let's do the next verse, and we'll see a few verses from chapter 2, which is what Michael taught last time. Can someone read? Catherine has asked if she can try. That would be great.
Thank you. Chale, Vate, Chalam, Chitang, Nisha, Chale, Nish, Chalam, Buffet, Yuki, Stanut, Van, Mapnuti, Tato, Vayum, Nirodayet.
Awesome. Thanks, Catherine. I hope people noticed she pronounced it chale instead of kale. So the C is a CH sound, chale. Chale vate chalam chitam, nishchale nishchalam bhavet. Yogi stanut vamno noti tato vayam nirodayat. This is a main theme of the second chapter. And it's what we need to understand about pranayama. So how does pranayama, or control of the breath, relate to the inner winds or prana? And how does this relate to my mind? Or more importantly, my happiness? And so this verses and this chapter drives this connection. And if we think for a moment of a time when we're calm, like think of a nice calm state where we're focused. What's the state of our breath? How is our breath? Like, is it all over the place? Is it erratic? And then think, when we're really stressed out, is our breath calm? Is it short? Is it smooth? And then this chapter teaches all of these different pranayama techniques to work on our mind through working on our prana, through working on our breath. Okay. And there's a lot of research going into very simple pranayama techniques now. And some of the simple ones mimic what the body naturally does. So I thought we would do 2 of my favorites. They're not from this text. They're more simple. But these are pranayama techniques I use a lot before meditation, for instance. So we'll do some pranayama. The first one, it has a fancy name. I can't remember it, but it's just making the audible sound ah. And it's what the body does when we get into a nice warm bath or when we get into a nice warm shower. The body just naturally relaxes and ah. And so we can mimic that normal body relaxation to induce that state. And so let's try. So just take a moment and just tap into how do I feel? How's my body? How's my mind? I'm a little nervous because I've done 2 verses and I'm halfway through the class. I'm way behind already. All right. Let me do something about it. Nice inhale. Ah. We'll do 3. 2 more. Nice inhale. Ah. 1 more. Ah. And there's a lot of research that shows we can get our mind, our body very quickly going from a fight, flight, freeze, hide response to a relaxation response through that simple technique. And it took what, 15 seconds? Mhm. There's another one that the body naturally does. Um, that again we can use to induce relaxation. I wanted to try, and it's a double inhale and an extended exhale. And when I first heard this, I I had never recognized my body doing it, and now I know the body naturally does this every day. My body does it every day. A couple times a day, I notice, and it's this natural response to anxiety. So we'll try it again. It's a double inhale and then an extended exhale. Let's do one more. And that's it. Super easy pranayama techniques that we can do at any point in the day. And then the second chapter, has much more, a lot of variety of techniques, but much more things we could do as part of our daily practice. Um, the main one being, it's called Nadi Shodhana. Nadi Shodhana means it's what is known as alternate nostril breathing. So breathing in one side, breathing out the other, but it means to cleanse the channels of impurities. And so there's a lot more depth in the second chapter for those techniques, but we can also simplify them and we can do them not just as a formal 15-minute practice, 20-minute practice, anytime in the day. And there's lots of research showing that there's no quicker way to induce states of relaxation. So, so very cool. And so we can see, what's the point? We can see a connection between our physical breath, our prana, and our state of mind. And that's what that verse was talking about. Well, let's look at the next verse. And again, maybe somebody could volunteer to read. Amir.
Thank you. I hope my mic is okay. Mala kolasu na di shu marido naiva madhyaga katham siadun mani havah karya siddhi katham have.
Awesome. Cool. Let's try it. Mala kulasu nadishu maruto naiva madhyaga katam svad unmani bhava karya siddhi katam bhavet. So again, this is a big topic in this chapter. Asana and pranayama function to purify the channels. Which makes us ask, well, what clogs the channels? Why do we need to? What clogs the channels? Swatmarama says it's negative thoughts, negative emotion, ignorance. And these cause the channels to be twisted, ripped, kind of clogged up. And that's the result from not only putting impurities into our body through food, but also putting impurities into our body through our mind. And so, this is exactly the process of Niguma Yoga, to twist, stretch, gather, distribute, where it's like the channels are knotted. And so by twisting the body, by lengthening the body, we're relaxing those knots and helping the prana flow more smoothly. And we can do that also by not just physically, but also with our mind, with thoughts of compassion, thoughts of wisdom. And then these two methods come together and reinforce each other. So we're not just doing a physical practice, right? We're improving the states of our channels physically and mentally. And I remember, the first time Geshe Michael taught me this, and he said, it's not twice as powerful. Like if we're combining the physical and the mental, it's not twice as powerful. He said, it's 20 times. No, it's 50 times. No, it's 1,000 times more powerful. Like, don't think of it like combining the physical and mental, doing the asana with a mental component of compassion and wisdom, then it becomes twice as powerful. That's not the theory. Let's do the next verse. Sabrina, can you read?
Yes,
I saw your hand up before.
I love to try. Thank you, teacher. Pranayama tata ku yani yam satvikaya dia yata susumnan nadishta malasu di prayaniti cha.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabrina. Pranayamam. Hatha Kurya Nityam Satvikaya Diya Yata Sushumna Nadishtamala Shudim Prayanticha. So that's what this verse is saying. When we do the practices, do it with the purest of thoughts. This verse is saying combine those two ideas, combine both methods, physical and mental, the Hatha Yoga and the Raja Yoga. And it reminds me of this thing that happened yesterday where someone came up and said, Geshe Michael told us that we don't have to do yoga to see emptiness directly. And that was very problematic for them, which to me, so, Geshe Michael I don't know, he said the exact opposite 100 times for 40 years. He's been saying, do your yoga. And then, and then he said, look, you don't need to do yoga asana to see things directly. And then like, oh, that's exciting. I don't have to do my yoga anymore. Geshe said we don't have to do yoga. And, he said it once, so I don't need to do it. And is it true? Do we need to do yoga to see emptiness directly? Well, first off, do we include meditation as part of yoga? Because we should. Okay? Meditation is a big part of yoga. So, really the question is, do I need to do yoga on my mat? Do I need to do the physical asanas to see emptiness directly? And the answer is no. You probably not. Like, I'm sure there's people that never did yoga and saw emptiness directly. Like, you don't need to. That's probably true. But it sure would be easier to do both, right? Like why not work with the inner body? Why make it hard on ourselves? It's a faster method. Every text says that working with the body, the inner body, is by far faster. So there's a faster method. Do you have to do yoga? No. It's Geshe not lying. No, you don't have to do yoga. You don't have to progress faster if you don't want to. That's fine. We have that choice. It's okay. But the methods are there. Like the option of working with pranayama, the option of working with kumbhaka, the option of the advanced practices are there. And then we can see, is that true? Is it a faster method or not? We have the option. So I don't know. I thought it was a funny question or like situation. Do we need to do yoga? Geshe told me we don't have to do yoga. No, okay. You have to disregard the 1,000 times he said do yoga, and then think about it. What am I giving up? Anyway, that's my opinion. Let's look at the next verse. Yeah, we'll have a look at this real quick. This says Dauti or Basti Stata Neti Tratakam Nauli So these are the practices of cleaning the inner body, cleaning the inside of our body. They're called Shat Karma practices. We can see Kapalabhati in this verse too. So these are like we get taught how to clean the outside of our body. We get taught how to brush our teeth. There's a yogic name for brushing our teeth. It's called Danta Dauti. Danta is our teeth, Dauti is to clean. And so we can think of yoga as when we're brushing our teeth, we can think, oh, I am doing yoga. We do need yoga. It's true. And that's kind of the start of like, okay, how can I take care of my body? But there's also ways that we can take care of the inside of our body. And this list is 6 of them. Stuff like for people that know how to use a neti pot, and cleaning the nasal passageway with a neti pot. Um, so this is a list of these 6 practices, and we'll be doing them in a retreat at Diamond Mountain at the end of this year. And retreat is a skill. So when we think of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it's a very advanced text. It's a text of practices that some of them are meant for retreat. And I think that as a yoga practitioner, we should really be looking at, how can we add retreat into our yearly routine, into our lifestyle. Group retreats are great. Teaching retreats are great. Geshe will teach this for 10 days. Those kind of retreats are amazing. Going on a group meditation retreat or where there's some meditation and some teaching, that's great. But eventually that should lead us to a personal retreat. And then we can make really fast progress. And this text is filled with the practices that we would do on a personal retreat, like these cleansing practices. So the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it's a text that takes us deeper. And yoga is a practice that takes us deeper. And I don't just mean the physical yoga. I mean the big picture of yoga. The Pradipika is for those that know the distinction, it's a diamond way text. So in the lineage of Tsongkhapa, there's a very strict division of foundation, which is the foundational teachings, and then the higher teachings. And those teachings were traditionally secret. Go to grade school, go to high school, get your BA, and then you can go do your doctorate. The Diamond Way teachings of the doctorate, and you don't do that before you go to high school. Okay? So this text is a doctorate. It's a lot of it is the practices of the Diamond Way teaching, and it's filled with practices traditionally we wouldn't study in Tsongkhapa's lineage until doctorate studies. And then what we have here is an opportunity to get a glimpse at those practices, to get introduced to them, and then to understand what they are a little bit, and then to go to your teacher to learn the details of them. Or what's amazing about the Tsongkhapa lineage is that we get all of those practice details. But Pradipika is going to introduce us to those practices. Pradipika is going to open the door and allow us to peek in at these practices that maybe we wouldn't otherwise get to. And then we can go to our teacher and get the details of them. And then we can go to the Jetsun Kappa lineage and get the details of these higher teachings. But this text is super cool because we get that opportunity to have a look at the more subtle teachings. And that's kind of the progression of this text is more and more subtle, more and more subtle. Okay, I'm going to stop there and look at some of the Q&A stuff. I haven't been monitoring the chat. And then we'll look at the very end, what are the practices of the third chapter? What are the more subtle practices that we're getting to? Mm, Okay, a question. When we are in Shavasana, can we call this process a process of dissolving or feeling ourselves dying? Um, there's a lot of things we could do in Shavasana. Um, my teacher used to always encourage us to mm, be present in the present and to kind of use it as a time for meditation and to let thoughts just kind of come and go and to let the prana in the body just find its way to where it needs to be. And I'm most of my life, my yoga practice was pretty intense. It was an hour and a half, pretty strenuous. And I would say 90% of my Shavasana, I fell asleep. And and I loved it. It felt so refreshing. And 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Shavasana was just magical. And so I think that it's a time to just let the body do its thing. Now, and as a teacher, you know, it's so important to give the students that time in Shavasana. Um, I think most classes, teachers say Shavasana is the most important pose and then give 3 or 4 minutes for it. And it's, in my opinion, it's just criminal. It's not long enough. Um, so then what else can we do in that process? You could certainly do a disillusion practice. You could do a compassion practice. You could do mantras if you wanted to. Uh, you could do a whole bunch of practices. Um, but for me, I think the Shivananda lineage teaches it very well. It's just like allowing the prana to go back to where it wants to be. Just relax. You don't have to do anything. And if you want to do a practice, yeah, you can do some compassion practice. That's very beautiful. And at the end of that practice, it's like rising. How do we want to rise out of Shavasana and re-engage with the world? Like, I think that's a really important part of it also. It's an opportunity to dedicate our practice or to set our motivation of not leaving the effects of yoga on the mat and not getting up and immediately rushing into our day and rushing into the busyness. Like, how can we gradually transition from Shavasana with a really strong, pure intention and motivation and carry that forward from our practice into our day? I think that transition is really um, important and something that I definitely wasn't good at. it's like have this nice experience, then I got to get up and I got to run, go to work, get in front of the computer. I see some questions in Russian. That's going to be hard for me. Um, Someone can shout out a question. I'm just kind of scan the text. What's the most efficient way to accumulate the necessary goodness to experience that which will create perfection? Like, how do? Thank you, Stevie. It's good to see you. Stevie studied with Geshe Michael's teacher for a long time. Not saying she's old. I'm just saying she's been at this game for many, many years and studied with a lot of great teachers, including Geshe Michael and Geshe Michael's teacher. And I'm so honored to have you in my class.
I was just confirming your fact that when Geshe Michael said you don't have to do yoga, what I was confirming that doing yoga and meditation is the most efficient way of accumulating merit.
Yeah. I think when I think of what's efficient, I think we tend to think of, I need to do more. Like I'm not progressing fast enough. My meditation is not where I want it to be. I don't feel like I'm closer to this idea of no more negative emotions, let alone knowing everything in the universe. How do we progress faster? What do I need to do more? I'm not doing enough. There must be something I'm missing. And I think that idea is maybe a wrong starting point of, I think we all do enough. And to ask the question, kind of what Steve was saying, how can I be more efficient? Can we make our practices more powerful? And a couple things come to my mind. One is setting intention, make our practices more powerful through having a pure motivation, pure intention. And that is the difference between creating seeds that wear out and seeds that the collections of merit and wisdom that don't wear out. Secondly, dedicating our efforts. And those are theoretically simple to do. And then third, trying to erase the line between now I'm practicing and now I'm not. Okay, I'm practicing when I'm on my meditation cushion. I'm practicing when I'm on my yoga mat. And to see that yoga is something that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we have the opportunity to be practicing all the time. And that's kind of where I'm at with how to make things more efficient. Gosh, some more people just popped on my screen. It's so nice to see some friends. Let's go to the next slide. We'll have to skip one actually, and let's take a peek at what's coming up. Maybe the next one, and the next one. There we go. What's in chapter 3? What will Geshe Michael be teaching in January? Main topic is Kundalini, this inner fire tumo, or this energy that awakens, or prana coming in the center channel. So it's a huge part of chapter 3 is this idea of Kundalini. And so we'll talk about that a lot. And how that relates to our happiness, how that relates to the destruction of negative states of mind, and certainly how that relates to seeing emptiness directly. As like, a very, very powerful inner body practice to bring on states of realization. And it's the main topic of Diamond Way. Diamond Way is centered around Kundalini. It's the essence of all things Diamond Way. So when we talk about the 6 yogas of Niguma, all of that is centered on this idea of Kundalini. So it's an extremely, extremely important topic. Second is a mudra, or a seal, I guess you could translate it. Seal as in something that you seal in, like you seal a jar by putting the lid on it. And so a seal means, or a mudra is these ways, very subtle ways to channel prana, and then to channel prana and then lock it in. Kitchery is what spell check does to K-chari all the time. And if you're not paying attention, spell check will change K-chari into the food Kitchery. So the practice is K-chari. K is a word that means the sky. Chari means to move through it. So sky dancer. In the Hatha Yoga Pradipika lineage, it's a very strange practice of cutting your tongue, the part that connects your tongue to your mouth, so that you can put your tongue back into your throat and into your brain. That's not how Geshe Michael teaches it. That's not our lineage. Kitchery is a much different practice, and it's related again to the Diamond Way teaching. So we'll see how deep Geshe Michael will go into that for us. But it's a very special practice in the Jetsun Kappa lineage, this idea of Kitchery. There's a practice called flying that Geshe Michael will be teaching us, which I think is hilarious. I always like to joke, like, don't miss that class. Don't be the one stuck walking around forever for the rest of your life. So that'll be a topic. I won't say more about that. And then lastly, a practice called Nada Yoga. Nada Yoga is the yoga of sound, or actually translates it as sounds of the center channel. And again, a really, really important, really subtle practice. We'll be teaching it in Lady Naguma 3, a practice called Dorje Depa, which means diamond recitation. And so Nada Yoga is another really important part of the deeper teachings, of the subtle practices that all have the same goal. It's all Hatha Yoga practices that bring us to Raja Yoga, that bring us to that state of mind that destroys ignorance and thereby destroys suffering. That's we can keep coming back to that math over and over again. Why are we talking about any of this? Because of the fact of suffering. And then these 5,000-year-old ideas of, well, can we do something about that suffering? Can we get to a state that transcends suffering? And Hatha Yoga are the physical practices that bring us to that mental state, the to Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga can mean direct perception of emptiness. It can mean the final state. And so we're talking about these subtle practices that bring us to these states, that stop us from yelling back at the dog and doing the only thing that can perpetuate the thing we're trying to avoid. And to do that, we need to understand emptiness. And to understand emptiness, we can use not only the physical study, not only the meditation, but using our physical body as well. And for some people, oh my God, that's so great because it's so much easier. I can't control my mind very well. My mind's crazy, but I can control my body. So if I can do physical practices with my body to control my mind, that sounds great. Body, no problem. I can control that. Mind, like Arjuna said, mind is as hard to control as the wind. Oh, he's complaining to his teacher. It's like Krishna. He's like, the mind is harder to control than the wind. And so, okay, great. Here's some physical practices we can do. Combine those with those mental practices. And now we've got a fast, powerful method, which is the idea of, let's go to the next slide, riding the tiger. And that's why we have the image of the tiger, because the tiger is symbolic of Hatha yoga, fast, powerful methods that bring us to our goal. And so this is the course that Geshe Michael will be teaching, January 18 to 29. He'll be taking us through half of the third chapter and part of the fourth chapter. And then in September, he'll be doing the rest of the third chapter and the rest of the fourth chapter. We'll have yoga and meditation classes taught by YSI teachers. And we'll be using that opportunity to reinforce the practices in the Pradipika. So we'll be a little more, it won't just be general yoga classes this time. It'll be really focusing on the practices within the text. I'll be teaching a review class, and Michael Johnson will be teaching Sanskrit. So it's a very complete program. There's tons there: yoga, meditation, Geshe Michael's class, a review class, Sanskrit class. It's a lot. And, some people kind of feel intimidated, like it's too much, and it's okay. The recordings are available. Not everybody can do every component because of time zones or because of time. It's okay. But don't miss the opportunity. One of the greatest translators in the world is teaching one of the greatest texts in the world that he translated in 3 retreat when he was doing these practices, and really in depth. And that combination is so rare. Translations of this text is very rare. Commentaries on this text are more rare. Commentaries on this text by someone that's done the practices in deep retreat, extremely rare. And then to have somebody translate it from the perspective of and the wisdom and experience of the Jetsun lineage, if that's what you're into, there isn't anybody else doing it. There is no one else. So it's a cool opportunity to study these things with Geshe Michael. And if you follow that QR code, or if you go to the YSI Yoga Studies website, you'll end up at a landing page with a bunch of links to a bunch of language groups. So you'll see how to sign up if you're German speaking, if you're Russian speaking, if you're Chinese speaking. So just be aware that when you go onto that, follow that QR code, you'll get onto that site, and there'll be links to help you sign up appropriately. Let me check the chat. Oh, now there's a bunch of questions I want to answer. How do you start your yoga practice when it's cold? Sun salutations. Heat the body up quickly. Could do some pranayama. I've done yoga in most of my life was in cold rooms. It's hard. You just got to do it. If you have little time, what's your favorite asanas? Yeah, I just did what my teacher told me to do. Makes it easy. I think if we fall into the trap of doing our favorite ones, we don't do our least favorite ones. And I think that can be a problem. All right. Bring your questions to the course. I know there's a lot more and we've run out of time. Actually, we'll be doing another webinar, myself and Michael Johnson, January 4th, I think. And then there'll be a third one with Connie and John Brady. And they're going to be teaching the connections between the Diamond Way and the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. So we'll have two more. Like I said, it's Hatha Yoga Pradipika season starts today as we gear up for that program. So we'll have another program discussion with Michael Johnson and myself, January 4th, I think. And then Connie and John Brady a week before the event. And they'll be discussing this connection between the Diamond Way teachings and this text. Really want to thank our translators. How did I do? Too fast, too slow? Couple thumbs up, good. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you setting this up. And Sophie, appreciate all of our distributors who put the word out there and bring people into these teachings. Everybody that translated this text so that we'll all have manuals, tons of work. People are putting in hours to have manuals and this text translated in 7 different languages. Thank you. And then for the people that showed up, it's beautiful to see you. And I look forward to studying with you, connecting with you in the future. Have a beautiful day.